Welcome back to Introduction to Climate Change Science, Part 9, by Robert Bourgeois, your presenter, Associate Professor of Anthropology and Humanities at Albertus Magnus College in New Haven. This lesson, in its now 9 parts, I think there'll be 2 more at most, was created to fulfill the requirements of a workshop at Yale on global climate change and food security through the auspices of their programs and international educational resources. And the workshop was excellent. I ended with a treatment of Alan Savory, who is an inspiration to many, but he's also controversial and has received criticism. But he has experimented with greening the desert, claims some successes, and he definitely has disciples here in the United States, one of whom was a farmer from Maine who has gotten good results with practices consistent with Alan Savory's approach. So I'm not competent to make a final judgment, but there is a glimmer of hope that comes out of his work. Now, I want to get back to the concept of impact chains. Impact chains which show the relationship between warming, climate change, and human welfare. Here are some of the things that we have to worry about with the warming of the Earth. It is believed, studies have been done to show a connection between global warming and civil conflict as arable land becomes scarcer, with extreme events of storms and flooding. Both of these can result in the displacement of peoples, which puts great stress and hardship on humans and families. Then warming, we've seen at least one example with the bark beetles of the increase in disease transmission. Warming can bring about the spread of infectious diseases. Increases in heat put stress on people, and both of these things can lead to sickness and death. Air pollutants from industrial processes cause smog and respiratory disease. And then the pressure on the food supply by both increased population and the desertification of the world's grasslands is going to lead to famine and malnutrition. In fact, is doing so in parts of the world. So we can see that there are direct relationships between the well-being of human beings living a decent life and climate change. Now I'm going to move to the concluding portions of the lesson plan here by looking at remember we talked about the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I'm going to share with you results of the reported in their last major report issued in 2014. I'm going to summarize them quickly. Observed changes and their causes. Human influence on the climate system is clear, and recent anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases are the highest in history, and these have widespread impacts on human and natural systems. The warming of the climate system is unequivocal, and since the 1950s, many of the observed changes are unprecedented over decades to millennia. The atmosphere and ocean have warmed. The amounts of snow and ice have diminished. Sea level has risen. This is a chart in the same report, 2014 IPCC, of temperatures and sea levels. Note the general exponential curve shape of both land and sea temperatures and levels of the seas. This looks at globally average greenhouse gas concentrations in parts per million, and this looks at gigatons of emissions of CO2 deriving from both the gray fossil fuel cement and flaring and the sort of brownish color representing forestry and other land use which produce carbon emissions. The causes of climate change. Anthropogenic Greenhouse gas emissions have increased since the pre-industrial era, driven largely by economic and population growth, and are now higher than ever. This has led to atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide that are unprecedented in at least the last 800,000 years. This is a chart showing total annual anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions for 40 years between 1970 and 2010. And these are the components: nitrous oxide, methane, carbon dioxide, and fuel and other processes. Climate change will amplify existing risks and create new risks for natural and human systems. Risks are unevenly distributed and are generally greater for disadvantaged people and communities in countries at all levels of development. So that means that in general, the global south, which is disadvantaged, is going to suffer more than the global north. But it also means that within the advanced countries, the disadvantaged people are going to suffer disproportionately. This brings us to the end of part 9 rather, and we'll get back with I believe will be the final screencast in part 10.